Okay, it's time to make corrections for our transformations test last week. Number one, we are focusing in on point Z because we're talking about our new point Z prime. So I'm just going to focus in on Z. I'm not going to worry about the others. Z is at -2, -4. It tells me that I'm translating using the rule -4, -3. So that means from my x, I have to subtract 4, and from my y, I have to subtract 3. So z prime, -2 minus 4 is -6, and -4 minus 3 is -7. Z prime would be right here. Number 2. A counterclockwise rotation of 270 degrees. You all had access to your rules. If you look at your rule, a 270-degree counterclockwise turn, I'm going to flip them around, and the second number becomes negative. I am focusing in on D. I'm not going to worry about the others. D is at 2, -7. I'm going to flip them around first, -7, 2, and then I'm going to make the second number negative. So D prime would be at -7, -2. All I'm doing is using my rules, which you had access to in your notes. All right? We've got a reflection over the y-axis. Had you looked in your notes, you would have seen that a reflection over the y-axis means that the x has to change signs and the y stays the same. So I'm going to focus in on point D, which is right here. So D is at 1, -3. So focusing in, D prime, I'm going to make the first number, I'm going to change the sign, I'm going to make that -1, and the y is going to stay the same. So D prime would be -1, -3. Remember, if it flips over the y-axis, excuse me, oops, that says x-axis. Excuse me, Miss Colvin's eyes are not very good. Oh, no, that's right. No, it's not. If it flips over the x-axis, the x stays the same. Sorry about that. All right, so that means that the x is going to stay the same. X is going to stay the same, and the y is going to change signs. So my answer would be 1, 3 right here. Okay, sorry about that. Number 4, which of the following transformations does not preserve congruency? We have talked about this over and over and over again. We said that a rotation is congruent, right? A rotation is simply a turn. So you turn the figure, but it doesn't change size or shape. A reflection is congruent. A reflection is simply a flip. So you flip the figure, but it doesn't change shape or size. A translation is congruent, because that's simply a slide. So you slide the figure, but it doesn't change shape or size. We have said it 1,000 times. A dilation makes it bigger or smaller because you are multiplying, causing the figure to get bigger or smaller. A dilation is the one that does not preserve congruency. Number 5, 180-degree rotation. According to my rules, that means that X and Y change signs. That's my rule. So I'm focusing in on point G. G is at -8, 3. This rule means that both numbers have to change signs. So G prime would be at 8, -3. Everything had to change signs. Everything changes sign. That's what a 180-degree rotation means. So 8, -3 is my answer. All right, number 6, we've got a dilation. If it's a dilation, I know that I'm going to multiply. All right, we are going to do all of the coordinates. So my scale factor is 1/3. So I'm going to do C is at -12, 3. D is at -3, 0. E is at -6, -9. And F is at -15, -6. You're going to multiply every single number times 1/3. Every single number times the scale factor. All right, doing this in my head, I know that multiplying by 1/3 is the same thing as dividing by 3. So -12 divided by 3 is -4. 3 divided by 3 is 1. D prime, -3 divided by 3 is -1. 0. E prime, -6 divided by 3 is -2. -9 divided by 3 is -3. And F prime, -15 divided by 3 is -5. -6 divided by 3 is -2. So I'm looking for C prime is at -4, 1. It's looking like it has to be this answer choice. Here's my C prime, my D prime, my E prime, and my F prime. Okay? Okay? The vocabulary. Your answer choices here on the Canvas test, your choices were slide, a flip, a turn, and a change in size. These were your choices. We've talked about it many, many times. Another word for reflection is a flip. Another word for rotation is a turn. Another word for a translation is a slide. And dilation, again, was the only one that changes size. Over and over and over again, we talked about it. All right, translation, focusing in on point K. K is at 2, -1. My rule says x plus 5 and y minus 7. That means add 5 to the x and subtract 7 from the y. So K prime would be at 2 plus 5 is 7. -1 minus 7 is -8. 7, -8. Next, scale factor of 5/2. That means I've got to multiply every single number times 5/2. So they want us to focus in on point R. So I'm just going to focus on R. is at 6, negative 2. And I have to multiply every number times 5 over 2. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go 6 times 5 over 2, and that equals 30 over 2, which equals 15. Then I'm going to do negative 2 times 5 over 2, and that equals negative 10 over 2, which equals negative 5. So my coordinates for point R prime would be 15, comma, negative 5. All right, the following figure has been transformed. Identify the type of transformation. Okay. It's not a reflection over the x-axis. Here's the x-axis. If it were over the x-axis, then A prime would be right here. And it's not. So it's not a reflection over the x-axis. It's not a reflection over the y-axis, because if we were reflecting it over the y-axis, it would end up over here. It's not a dilation. It didn't get bigger or smaller. It didn't change size, y'all. It is a rotation. If you take this thing and turn it, you're going to land on the figure. Okay? So it is a rotation. It's a turn. All right, next. What is the rule for this transformation? Okay, obviously it's a dilation. Okay, it changed size. So I should see some multiplication in my rule. Okay, all of the rules have multiplication. I am going from FGH to FGH prime. This figure got smaller. So that means that my scale factor is less than 1. So this has a scale factor of 4. It's not less than 1. This, and we don't have negative scale factors. No negative scale factors. So this is negative. It has to be this one, but I'm just going to double check. I'm going to choose G. I'm going to compare G to G prime. G is at 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4, 8. And G prime, remember it's new over old. G prime is at 2, 1, 2. Remember, if you do new over old, the x's would be 1 over 4, and the y's would be 2 over 8. And if you simplify 2 over 8, still get 1/4. So this is my answer. All right, we've got a reflection over the y-axis. That means the y stays the same. So focus in on point T. T is at -7, -8. T prime, remember your rule would be that the y stays the same, the x goes negative. So this is my rule. So the x, when I say goes negative, I mean it has to change signs. So the x has to change to a 7, and the y stays the same. So that would be right here. All right. What's the rule for the given transformation? Okay. This looks like a reflection to me, and it looks like we're reflecting over the y-axis. As you can see, x is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units to the right, and this is 5, 2, 3, 4, 5 units to the left. So this is a reflection over the y-axis. So my rule for that would be the y stays the same. So that means the x changes signs, the y stays the same. X changes signs, and the y stays the same. All right? 90 degrees counterclockwise turn. That means that they're going to flip places, and the first number is going to change signs. I'm going to focus in on point T. So T is at -5, -1. I'm going to flip them around for T prime, -1, -5, and then I'm going to change the first number, change its sign. So that would be +1, -5. +1, -5. Okay. Number 15. In the problem below, identify the new coordinates of triangle LMN using a scale factor of 2. That means I'm going to multiply every single number times 2. So they want all points. So I'm going to do L is at 2, 7. And I'm going to do times 2 times 2. So L prime would be at 4, 14. All right. M is at 6, 0. So I'm going to do times 2 times 2. So M prime would be at 12, 0. And N is at 3, 1. So I'm going to do times 2 times 2. N prime would be at 6, 2. So L prime is at 4, 14. It's looking like it's this one. Double check, 12, 0, and 6, 2. Yes. All right, 16. What would happen to a figure if given this rule? Okay, I see addition and subtraction. Addition and subtraction tells me that it's a translation. I know that. Okay, so that means it's not a reflection. All right, so I've got to decide if it's this one or this one. So x minus 5, that means 5 units left. Remember, x goes left and right. The x goes left and right. And this means 2 units up, because the y goes up and down. So because this is negative, that's to the left, and because this is positive, that's going up. So 5 units left, 2 units up. All right, number 17. If a figure is in quadrant 1 and is rotated 90 degrees clockwise, so I've got a figure in quadrant 1. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. And here's the figure. and I'm going to go clockwise. Clockwise goes to the right. In other words, it goes like this. Goes this way. Goes with the clock. So if I go 90 degrees equals 1 turn. So I'm going to go 90 degrees with the clock. I'm going to end up in quadrant 4. All right. The next one is vocab. I'm not quite sure if you missed this one, how you might have missed it, because the choices were either a change in position, or size, and the other choice was a fixed line midway between figures. So y'all, a line of reflection, I'm thinking it's going to be the one that has the word line in it. Line of reflection, fixed line. So here we would put the definition that says a fixed line midway, etc. Making the other one your transformation. That's what this whole unit has been about. Change in position or size. This whole unit, we've been moving figures across the coordinate plane or dilating them and making them bigger or smaller. Okay, number 19, what is the rule for the given transformation below? All right, I see a slide here. Okay, this is a slide. It's a translation. I know that my rule has to contain addition and subtraction. So this one's out, there's no addition or subtraction there. And this one's out, there's no addition or subtraction there. It's one of these two. So I'm going to go from P to P prime. This is my old, this is my new. So to get from the old to the new, I have to go 1 unit left, 1 unit left, and 3 units up. Okay? This one says 1 unit right and 3 units down. This one's going the wrong way. They went from new to old. That's not correct. We want this one. X minus 1 means 1 unit left. Y plus 3 means 3 units up. And the last one, describe what happens to a coordinate point when it is reflected across the y-axis. If it's across the y-axis, the y stays the same. All right? The y value becomes the opposite. Nope. The y stays the same. The x value becomes the opposite and the y stays the same. Yes. Let's double check the rest. The x and y coordinates switch positions. Nope, nothing switches positions. The x and y coordinates switch positions. No. That is your corrections.